Great minds think alike.
We're so good at this. I love it.
I do love Oreos.
We're going to try that one more time.
Okay.
Welcome to the Reading Queens podcast, the show where we blab about our favorite books, why we love them, and the book boyfriends we wish were real. I'm Valia.
I'm Tessonja. And I'm Kay.
And I'm Hanna.
And we're super excited you're back with us for another episode. So last week you got to meet 4 of us, but what we didn't tell you is that there are actually 11 of us.
Surprise!
Surprise! But not like here in this room right now.
No. There's 11 of us in an author group that we briefly mentioned last episode. And I know it seems like a lot and it can be overwhelming, but you get to know everybody in no time. And we're going to talk about more on that later. But for now, we're just going to catch up. So how's everybody doing?
So good. So good.
I'm fine. I don't know. Everything's normal.
You don't know if you're fine?
I never know how to answer that question. It's good.
See, we had, because we're recording in the past, because we're time travelers, and we had Canadian Thanksgiving between our last 2 recordings. So I am good because I made wonderful pumpkin pie and then ate it all.
Yum.
Hey.
I'm not trying to be a cliche about the pastries thing, but I really do make a lot. If I know, and if other people make pumpkin pie, they sometimes try and make like healthy pumpkin pie.
No.
Like I love my mother. I love her so much, but she makes like pumpkin pie with tofu in it.
Oh.
And it was always like, you can't even tell the difference. And I thought I couldn't tell the difference too. And then now I'm like, but it does taste like tofu. So, she's going to listen now, and now she'll know why I always make the pumpkin pie. But I'm like, I volunteer.
Well, now you have a good reason to volunteer. Because tofu, I already don't like pumpkin pie, but that just really has turned me off of pumpkin pie.
Someday I will make you pumpkin pie. It is buttermilk maple syrup pumpkin pie.
That does sound amazing.
So good.
I'm the vegan, so I'm like tofu pumpkin pie. Okay, but here's the thing. You can definitely make pumpkin pie that's vegan without tofu in it. The only place that tofu has in even a vegan pumpkin pie is if it is like vegan cheesecake and it, like for some reason tofu is like the thickener. But yeah.
And I think it's like instead of it being a custard, you would do that. But I would think, we don't need to keep talking about this, but I'm guessing it's would work. But continuing on with baking with Hanna.
I know. I always want to bake after we're done. I'm like, I should make something.
I'm not even going to tell you what I baked last night. That's for another day.
Well, now we're going to be sitting here in suspense wondering.
I know.
Okay. They were apple cider baked donut holes.
Delicious.
Oh my gosh.
On Bookstagram, I keep explaining, like, my Bookstagram life is so complicated. But I'm in a Bookstagram chat group called Books to Bakers. I tried to explain this to my husband. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, Books to Bakers, obviously, because we're Bookstagram, we're baking.
Bake.
And then, like, once a month we have a chat where we all bake the same recipe. So that was the recipe.
Sounds
we
so
made,
fun.
like,
That's fun.
it
That
is
does
fun.
sound fun.
It has nothing to do with books, but
It doesn't
but
matter.
we're book people. We're book people who are baking, so it makes us happy. It's super cute. And yeah, apple cider, donut holes.
Sounds good to me.
I had
Probably
3
have
this
eggs
morning.
in them. I can't ever have donuts unless they're vegan.
Well, these ones, no, they had both yogurt and eggs in them.
JK.
Somebody made a vegan version though, so.
I bet I would make a pretty good. I love adapting recipes and turning them vegan.
Yeah, it's like a challenge.
Sometimes it turns out better than like you go and you look up a vegan recipe, and it's like there's like 1,000 things in it and like all these weird. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do like I know the swaps. I'm just gonna take the regular recipe, make the swaps, and it's gonna turn out super good.
I like it.
Well, I hate cooking and baking. Totally. So.
But do you like eating?
Obviously I like eating. Who doesn't like eating?
I don't know. Some people are like food, whatever, and then it's hard for me to be friends with them. But
yeah, I think I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've made cookies since I've gotten married. Maybe 2. Maybe it would take 2 hands.
2.
I've been married for 13 years, by the way.
Oh, that changes things.
I would mail you guys cookies if I wasn't in Canada.
We're basically just gonna have like a whole baking portion when we finally do our writers retreat.
Nice.
We'll just
my
have
gosh.
Hannah bake and Tess can bake.
Should
I
we
mean,
have-
I guess I could
We
bake.
can have a bake-off.
And I'll
You're
clean
like
up.
my animal products versus
Kate can be the tester
Yes.
and the cleanup crew.
The tester. I will take
Yeah.
that job.
Perfect. We have a plan. It's great.
Okay, you guys, I have to tell you something though. Remember how last week we talked about I remember I talked about the fact that I never read Cinder, and you guys are like, what? You never read
Yes.
Cinder. Yeah, well, thanks, because you guilted me into reading
You're
it. So I know
welcome.
Kay
Perfect.
is going to be very proud of me because I finally started reading it. I didn't read the whole thing, but I did start reading it. I'm like third of the way through, and I really like it. I don't know why it took me so long to read it. I don't know. I honestly don't know, because it's been on my like TBR for so long, and it's one of those books where like when I start reading it, I'm like I go into a book thinking I know what it's gonna give me, and I'm like, okay, I'm prepared for this, but like it's a lot different than I thought it was, but in a
Yeah.
good way. It
Yes.
really wasn't like I thought I was ready for it and that I knew what was gonna happen, but I was like, wow, this is so different than like what I thought it was from like the cover and the blurb and like what everyone talks about. So yeah, I'm excited to finish reading it. So I
Yeah,
finally did it,
prepare
you guys.
yourself.
The
You're
peer
welcome.
pressure of the podcast is real.
I'm like, hey, we should change our little blurb to like guilting people into reading our favorite books.
For their own
For the-
benefit.
yes.
Yeah.
For their own, of course.
That's what friends
I'm
do.
so excited for you to finish it. Although you better have the next book ready to go. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes.
I have so many books I need to read. That's why I'm like, a lot of times when it comes to these series, I'm like, I don't even want to start them, because what if that ends up being like the series I end up being obsessed with, and then I can't read any of these other books that are on my list.
It's
a
only 4 books. Though. It's
problem.
not like a 12-book series.
That's
Although
That's
the last
true.
book is
You can handle
pretty
it.
long.
Is it?
You're not
Yeah.
healthy.
You're supposed
It's
to
my
convince
favorite
her.
series, so you have to read it. That's how it goes.
There you go.
If you don't read it, then you're not really Kay's friend.
Oh no.
So you better get reading.
As long as you intend to
Wow,
read
Hannah's
it.
harsh.
I'm sorry. It's the Mennonite in me. I know how to guilt like nobody else. Long line of guilting women.
Well, we talked about me watching Jane Eyre because I've never watched Jane Eyre as an adaptation, and I didn't do it. So
Rude.
you're ahead of me on our little homework thing.
I did not watch Emma either. I was supposed to, but you know what? I did watch Pride and Prejudice, the one with Keira Knightley, which I have seen before,
okay.
but it had been several years since I've watched it, and I've got to say, it was really fun. I do love those movies.
Yes.
I love it.
It's so
That one has
good.
such good music, and it's so swoony, and
Yes.
It does.
it is one of my favorite like all around movies, not just Austen movies, but I just love it.
Yes, it does. It gives you like all the emotions. I do have to say that I love the newer generation discovering that movie for the
Yes.
first time,
Mhm.
because TikTok is like full of people doing little clips, from movies and shows that they're enjoying, and then they're just like, "Oh my gosh, have you seen this?" And it's literally that little part where Darcy helps her into the carriage, and then he walks away and does the hand
Oh,
thing.
the hand.
And yes, and people are just like, "Oh my gosh, this is like the most romantic thing." And I was like, "Yes, honey, like you weren't born when this movie came out, but enjoy it now."
It's a classic now.
That's so
Yes,
funny.
that's so
Kind of
good.
sad to think about.
I know. I still think of it as
I
like the
know.
new Pride and Prejudice.
Me too.
Yes.
It is the newest one, right?
Well, it's like when
Yeah, it's like 15 years old.
when the new Little Women came out. I was chatting with one of my friends, and we're like, "But wasn't there already a new Little Women?" And then we were like, "That was like '93 or something." It came
Oh,
out.
yes.
Because I grew up watching like the old Little Women, and then there was the new Little Women, and I don't know, there's the new Little Women.
Which is really good.
Yeah, I
haven't
seen that
also.
yet.
I haven't seen it yet either, because I think I can watch it now, but when it first came out, it was like, you can rent it for $30. And I was like, no, I don't want to.
I rented it for $30, I'm sure.
I rented Mulan for $30, so I'm not actually above that, but I couldn't convince my
It
husband.
had to be the right one. Yeah, I am about to rent some. Actually, no, I decided I was just going to buy it, but Love and Monsters just came out, and Dylan O'Brien is like one of my favorite people ever, and I just like wish he would marry me. But he
If you're
is
listening
in
to
that
this
movie.
podcast,
Hey, Dylan.
Dylan O'Brien.
But he's in
Oh,
that
Valia.
movie, and it's yes, please. But that's like a perfect like young adult like monster movie with like a love story. It's like right up my alley, and so I'm like really excited. But I think I'm just gonna buy it instead of renting for $20. I'm gonna just buy it for $25.
What is this movie called? I don't know about this.
Love and Monsters. It's literally came out like last
Oh.
Friday at the time of this recording, and yeah, please look it up so that you can gush about it with
I'm writing
me.
it down.
I'm writing it down too.
Perfect.
My husband had me watch the trailer. He was like, I think you might like this thing. And I was like,
Yes.
and at first I was like, this might be scary, but I think it's actually not scary.
It's
So I think I will
not.
like it. I know. We were like both like, what is this?
Okay, but Valia, if you say it's not scary, that doesn't mean it's not scary. Okay, your rate,
Somebody
your scale
else
is different.
can
Can't
watch
trust me. No, but okay. So if you guys know Amy Tantera, she just watched it and she was like, I think you're gonna like it. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna check it out. And she does not like scary stuff.
Okay,
So
we have a
there
different
is that.
scale to
Yeah,
go
we've
by.
talked about my threshold for scary last week.
Yes.
Let's not revisit that.
No. I have been watching Bly Manor, or I've been trying to.
Me too.
because
I watch it too.
I don't. No.
It's not very scary.
That's okay. It's not scary at all, and I am not enjoying
don't
the
believe
storytelling. No, even Rose said that. You guys will meet
I don't
Rose
believe
next
Rose either.
episode.
Also watches
but she
scary movies all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
but she
Exactly.
scares easily. She scares so easily. And she told me that it started out creepy and then it's not creepy anymore. And I agree with that because it wasn't really creepy in the beginning, but I just like don't like the storytelling of it the way I did with The Haunting of Hill House. Because that one I just love the way they told the story itself, even without the creepy elements, but not so much with Bly Manor. Sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox.
No,
but-
same. I like it though. I really like it, but I don't like it as much as Hill House. Like, I'm enjoying it because it's suspenseful and I like things that are suspenseful and it's intriguing. But yeah, it's definitely not like, it's finally, we just finished an episode. It might be episode 6 or 7 that finally got pretty scary because you actually got to like see something that's for real, like happened. It's not just like, oh, I wonder if this is imagined or whatever. But yeah, I
Yeah.
liked that one. It was good. So but it's not the same. Like Hill House definitely had more of like, it had this amazing story about like a family drama and like there were so many feels in it, like every single episode, and it was scary every single episode. So it's different for sure.
I'm big on the family dynamic. I love that. And I thought Hill House did that so well. And with the Bly Manor, it is my, like one of my favorite horror stories, like the turning of the screw. And so I was really excited about the adaptation for it, but I don't know. I'm not feeling it, but I haven't gotten really far. I'm like on episode 4.
Yeah, they're still pretty tame
So.
around episode 4.
Okay, maybe I'll keep going. Maybe.
I'll tell you if it gets scary enough once we finish. We'll probably finish it in like a couple days. Or maybe tonight, who knows?
Okay, sounds good. You guys come for book talk and also show and movie talk because apparently this is just part of our conversation always.
It's okay. It's distracting from the fact that I also didn't do my homework.
We really failed at this.
I
thing.
didn't.
Awesome.
I'm
My
a
homework
A
was
Except for
student.
Tess.
Tessonja's the
Gold
winner.
star, give me a sticker.
My homework was only like to figure out if I had read a book, and I looked at the book description. And I was still like, I'm not sure. And honestly, Patricia Reed writes in such like a dreamy manner that I can't quite sometimes remember which book is which. I just remember that they're so fun when I'm reading.
Yeah,
them.
her books are very
I'm
surreal.
like, and then you enter the dream world, and you come out when the book is done.
Hey, that's the way to do it,
Oh,
man.
it's good. She's really great, but I don't know. I think I read that one. I'm giving it a 75% chance that I read it.
75%.
That I read it like 20 years ago.
Oh, that's funny. Do you guys usually reread books? Like, is it in general?
Yes.
Really?
I used to reread books more than I do now, because since I joined Bookstagram, I know about too many books. But I reread. Okay, my favorite genre is YA fantasy, but that's not usually what I reread. I reread contemporary romance and rom-coms because I like it. I guess it like doesn't matter if you know the ending because they're all happily ever after. It's all about like the
Yeah.
feeliness, right? So it's not like
Right.
rereading it harms it in any way. So I have a couple authors that I reread almost like once a year, and I try and get as many of them as possible so that I don't I have overread books to the point where I can't read them for a few years because I know all the words.
You know all the words.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm like, oh, I know like every single part of this book. Yeah, but I love rereading. Yeah, happy romances.
That's interesting. I haven't been big on rereading just because I always feel like I could be reading a new book now or whatever. But the same thing, my rereads are usually like new adult hockey romances. That's where I go because I was like, I miss hockey. And also, this is so angsty and adorable. Like, and they're usually pretty funny too. So it's like, the fun and then the romance, I like it. So I've done that a few times this year. I've like reread a couple of the hockey romance books, which are just so good.
Well, I want to reread soon, which I'm pretty sure, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, that Valia is the one who I learned about this book from, The Hating Game.
Yes, I recommended the crap out of that book.
Yeah, it's so good, and I want to reread it. Like, that book made me fall in love with, like, a little bit. Okay, so I used to not think that I liked a little bit of like heat and sizzle in my books. That book I like it, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but right after I wrote that book, I started writing a little more steam in my books.
Yes,
because I really liked it. I thought it was pretty tasteful. It was a little higher of a level than I'm comfortable writing about, but I loved reading about it. It was so sizzly, and I just like now I want to find, like, I seek out books with like that little bit of steam that's like not so steamy where you're just like blushing and you're
What
like,
is
I don't
this?
want
Yeah.
my fiance to look over my shoulder and see that I'm reading this, but you're like dang, this is getting good.
Yes, she does such a good job with that book because that's how I am. Like if you're gonna put sizzle in your book, like it has to make sense and it has to be done well. And I'm very picky about that, but I love that book so much.
It's gonna be a movie.
What?
It is.
Seriously?
I know.
So I'm curious how it will adapt, but
Me too.
it could be really cute.
It better be. I'm gonna be so
think
mad
yeah.
because I read that book once and
A lot of people will be so
yeah,
mad.
I mean, I've seen it all over Bookstagram. Like, it seems like it's a very popular one, but I was like an immediate convert. I don't even know if I read that much contemporary romance, but I like went on a kick after that. I was just like, give me more, and none of them have been as good as that one.
Well, I will like come up with some contemporary romance for you then, because I do. Most of what I read is a little lower heat level than that, but I'll see what I've got for you.
Or you can just ask me again and I can just recommend more.
The books that she just
Yeah,
told
give
you
me
to
some
read already.
sizzle.
I love it.
Ah, that segues. I don't know if we're segueing yet, but that segues into our
It
topic.
definitely does. It definitely does into our next topic. Because The Hating Game is an enemies to lovers book.
It is. That's true.
It's like a textbook enemies to lovers.
Enemies to lovers.
They're like sabotaging each other and causing trouble the whole time.
Yes, it's so good. I guess I really do have a type that I like gravitate to. But we each picked a book last week and we had you guys guess to see what it was. And it is Enemies to Lovers. But we're just going to go around and talk about what we read. So Tess can start us off.
All right. So the book that I read that had the enemies to lovers trope was The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Leevenseller. I finally got down how to say her name without like mumbling and getting stuck on it. I'm not great with pronunciation, you guys. See, I couldn't even pronounce pronunciation just now right off the bat. But anyways, I'm professional at pronouncing her name now.
Professional at it.
So anyways, this one, okay. Like, there's really no better way to describe it than how the author describes it, which is a Slytherin romance. So, like, Harry Potter Slytherin. I don't know if that word comes off right the way I say it, but I'm talking like Harry Potter Slytherin romance. So it's like, the very, very gray area, morally gray characters. And there's seriously like no better way to describe it. Like, this is not a redemption story. This is not like these characters are, they're just a little misunderstood, but then they find the light. Like, they do not find the light. They find it's about more of a change of heart, not a change of moral ethics. And it starts off, like, the way the book starts off is so intriguing because, like, the first word is like, they never found the body of the first boy I loved or something like that. So basically, the first line is so good. It's so good. And so it's basically like the premise is about this woman, Alessandra, who wants to marry the king, which is Callias, the Shadow King. He's brooding and handsome and all the stuff that makes a great enemies to lovers love interest. But she wants to marry him and then kill him so she can take his throne. So it sets it off right away that she's like, you know, she's not going in to marry this guy because she's like, I want to make him fall in love with me. She's like, I am going to, you know, basically emotionally seduce him, poison him and kill him and take his throne so I will be queen. So the premise right off is very morally gray, if not beyond morally gray. And so the dynamic here is that the Callias can't, and I'm avoiding spoilers. These are all things that you find out very early on in the book. Callias, the Shadow King, can't touch anyone. I hope this isn't a spoiler. At least I feel like I found this out really early on. He cannot touch anyone without losing his power. So he's not interested in a relationship. So really, right, like early on, even as these two, this couple is starting, like you start to see as a reader that, you know what, they actually work together, and I think they like might like each other, but you know, she still wants to kill him, and he is like, he's like totally committed to being celibate for the rest of his life. So there's like that dynamic where like, but could they actually get together? Like maybe they can't. Like it almost,
I love that.
Like it really does make you question, like, but like, is this actually gonna work out? Like, because it's very romancy. So you're like, I mean, it's obvious that there's romantic undertones, and so you're like, I mean, I'm pretty sure, but really though? So I really enjoyed it. It's very interesting because I've always been fascinated with that idea, like even that specific idea of like, what would it have been like as like, and this book, by the way, has nothing to do with Harry Potter. It's not related to the Harry Potter world. If I'm making it sound like it is, it's not. But like I always thought like, well, what would it have been like if the story had been from Draco Malfoy's perspective? Like it totally, I mean, obviously the book wouldn't have been as interesting, but like just see, like Harry would totally have been the antagonist. Like every time this goody two shoes got away with another thing, like, so I've always been fascinated with like thinking about that, like what would the stories be like from those other characters who the good characters are probably so antagonist to them, not necessarily like right or wrong, but like from their eyes they totally would be. And this book definitely plays with that a lot. There's like this very good like Robin Hood type character who like steals from the rich and gives to the poor, and like he gets, I mean, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but they like, you know, they're like, yeah, you're going to jail. He might be hanged. I don't know. I don't remember what happens to him, but he's the bad guy because he's getting in her way. He's getting in Alessandra's way of like having the life that she wants. But the book is also, it does a really good job of making her likable. Like you want to root for her, even though she's like not this good person. Like she's not a bad person once you start to get to know her. She did kill someone, but yeah, I don't know. It's one of those books where I don't think I would read an entire series that was set up this way where there was no redemption, but for a standalone book, I was very entertained. The enemies to lovers romance, I was there for it. I enjoyed it. It was great.
And I love books where you don't, like, you know they're going to get together, but you don't see how it's
Yes,
possible.
exactly.
Like,
Yes.
when they can pull that off, that's always so good. When you're like, no, but there's no way. Like, how? And sometimes it's not satisfying because they didn't think it through well enough. But when it is, it's, like, double satisfying.
Yeah, when there's, like, a very tangible thing that, like, either makes it forbidden or makes it be like, but there's no way.
Right.
It's
yeah.
impossible. Yeah.
That's always fun. I also like the whole like the no touching
Yes.
thing. Like that's like such a big, I don't know, it's just like it fascinates me because it really forces you to like think of a romance without any touch, which is like, well, you know, physical touch is such a big part of like a love language. Like how do you deal with that? So that always like fascinates me. It's like the no touch rule and stuff, or you know, if like somebody's dead and they're a ghost and They have to.
For
They have
example.
to. For example, my little obsession is still continuing on. But yeah, I love that whole no touch thing. But I'm gonna have to read this. I haven't read this.
Oh yeah,
so.
you should.
I haven't read it yet
It's
either.
so good. I mean,
I keep seeing people talk about it.
I've heard some people say that they didn't like it because they didn't like the main characters, and I am almost always that way if, like, the main character isn't likable, but this is different to me. Like, it wasn't that she wasn't likable because she was boring or I couldn't relate to her. I could relate to her. The darkest aspects of myself, I could relate. I'm like, if I was a worse person, like, and someone broke my heart and I was a bad person, would I kill him if I had a knife man? I don't know, but, like, I could put myself in her shoes,
Should
you guys.
we be having an intervention with your fiance?
Yeah, maybe.
Does
Maybe you
he
should
know?
warn him. No, he
Should we
knows.
be recording
He
this?
knows.
Don't get on Tess's bad side.
I know,
She
no
said
kidding.
If she was a worse person.
If I was a worse person,
Yes,
you guys.
yes, okay.
Disclaimer, you know.
That's awesome. Kay, you read something
Did.
too.
I read Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi. Well,
Another non-touch book.
it is another non-touch book. Yeah, the main character, Juliet, she can kill people with her touch. One touch from her will just kill someone. So she doesn't touch people. And the government wants to use her as a weapon. And, you know, I feel like maybe just a little bit of a mini spoiler to say that it is an enemies to lovers. You have to kind of get a few books into the series before you see that storyline. So sorry. But also I feel like it's kind of obvious it's going to go that direction. So
Yes, it is.
anyway, I really love, one of the things that I really love about this romance is the main character, Juliet, goes through such a transformation in herself. And it's only once that has happened that she is ready for the romance, you know? And so it is this enemies to lovers, but she is so scared of herself. She feels like she's helpless and weak. And throughout the series, she really grows as a person. And I love that as she changes as a person, so do her romantic preferences. And I just feel like that...
To bad boys? Is that what it's enemies to lovers?
I'm not going to say. You
Maybe.
have to read to find out.
Apparently I do have to read.
I thought it was very well done. I liked seeing the fact that the romance was more than just a romance, you know, that it had to do with her personal growth as well.
Which I think is like a big one.
Yeah.
I can tell I like enemies to lovers almost like an unhealthy amount, because when I'm reading a series and they're like happy with somebody but there's someone else that they really hate, I'm like, jump on board that immediately. Well, like, yes.
Make it happen now.
How long is it gonna take
Yes.
to get them together? Like, and if it doesn't actually work out and they just stay with the nice person, I'm always like, ugh. I guess like there's just like, I don't know, sometimes it's just boring and you're like, bring the sparks. Like, not in real life. I always say, I'm like,
Not in
oh
real life.
yeah,
Yeah,
unhealthy.
same.
This is unhealthy for actual relationships. Do not leave your nice boy and go for someone you think is terrible.
Yeah, it's never gonna work out anyway.
Yeah,
so.
that
That's a bad
doesn't happen in
idea.
real life, you guys.
No. Kay, what did you think of Tahara's writing style? That was like the first time I read something like that.
She has such a unique writing style. For me, I feel like I call it an out-of-body experience. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just, it feels like you are so deep inside of Juliet's head that it just I don't know how to describe it. It's just so unique, and it does feel like an out-of-body experience, but like
Yes.
deep inside her head. I know those sound contradictory, but it is cool. It's very different. It's really fun if you want something that is unique.
Yeah, I think that was like the first time I ever read something like that really like immersed me in, because I mean, I read a lot of first person stories, but that one was so like, I was so in her head that I was like, am I Juliet?
Yeah. And the main character loves poetry. She writes poetry, and so the prose of the book is so poetic. You know, it's just very beautiful.
Yeah, I love that book.
I keep meaning to read that series, and I haven't yet, so.
Well, what did you read?
Now I've got 2 books I need to read. I read Legendary, but as I said
Book
before,
2
by Stephanie Garber,
of
it is
Caraval,
book
yes.
2. So Caraval is book 1, and then there's Legendary, and then there's Finale. And the way the series is set up, Caraval is written from Scarlet's point of view, one sister, and then Legendary is written from Donatello's point of view, who's the other sister, and then Finale alternates between the two of them and wraps up both of their story arcs.
That's unique, yeah.
That's cool.
It is unique. And I think that, like, as I was reading through it, like, Caraval was her first published book, I believe. And it's really good. It's like this idea of, it's like this kind of circus game magic thing. And she goes to this island and she has to find her sister. And there's all like, what's real and what's not real and what's magic and what's, you know, and like, you don't know if you can trust the boy or not. And it's almost like she was trying to do an enemies to lovers to that one.
Okay.
And trying to do some other things that I think didn't quite work. Like, it works as a book, but it doesn't work as an enemies to lovers. But then book 2, it's kind of like she just upped the level of all of it. And I think part of it is that book 1 is it's only a game, and then book 2 it's like things are real, some of it. So there's more stakes to it. And I think stakes for enemies to lovers is important, because if you don't have, you have to have opposing interests. They have to be trying to do different things in the book to put them at odds to each other, because otherwise they're just grouchy, which I came across in my own writing when I was like trying to write enemies to lovers, but they kept like not being enemies, and I was like, why? And it's because it can't just be like, you can kind of like Pride and Prejudice is really just grouchy people, right? Who,
No,
like,
I feel like they're not just
No,
grouchy. They have very different families and backgrounds, and that's a stumbling block for their relationship.
It is, but they don't necessarily want things in opposition to each other.
Oh, that's true.
It's more like they have to work through things. So I think a true enemies to lovers, they have to want things that if the one gets what they want, it ruins it for the other one. And if the other one wins, then so that their stakes are high, because they have to have stakes that are higher than at the beginning their desire for each other to like work through it. So then this one, it's all, I don't know, there's like a layers to it. So it's Donatella, who goes by Tella, and Dante, and you don't know if you can trust him. You never know if he's telling the truth, but he seems really nice. But then she's also manipulating him because she's trying to get her mother back. So she's like, I like him, but would I betray him to get my mom? Probably. And until like it comes to at the end, you don't know if they will or not. You don't know if he's on her side or manipulating her. And you don't know if she, like, you know what she's feeling and thinking because it's first person, but you don't know what she'll choose, if she would choose her mother or choose Dante. And then you have Jax thrown in, who I don't consider this a love triangle, but some people are like totally team Jax, and he is worse than Dante. He's like an amoral, like, demigod kind of guy who can stop people's hearts, but is kind of charming and sort of seems to like her. So people are like, and he's like slowly killing her, but some people are there for it, because I think he gets like a little bit better by book 2. So I'm like, it's actually like a double enemy, but that one's not to lovers. But and like, I don't want to tell you I won't tell you the ending, but because it's book 2 and they both wrap up in book 3, it actually ends with their relationship just like in pieces, to the point where you're like, how on earth, what's going to happen? I must read the next book immediately, because it doesn't like wrap up till then. And I like it better than the last book, and I think it's there's reasons I can't tell you without it being spoilers. But book 2 is just like that pure, like, who do you trust? Are we at odds with each other? And she's always like, you know, attracted but then like angry. Just like
the angry attraction. I love it.
I had an excerpt. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, it's like she sees him without a shirt on. I always think shirtless scenes are like the funniest. I always write them in my books, but I can't do it with a straight face, so they're like usually laughing while it happens, because I'm always like, oh, shirtless scenes. It's like, oh, the muscles. So it says, Tella snapped her mouth shut, but it was too late. He'd seen her jaw drop, and now the vainglorious bastard was smiling, all white teeth and flawless lips. And Tella had to admit in that moment he could have convinced her, just like he'd managed to trick her into believing he actually cared about her. It's all like, he's so hot, but I hate him. That's like what it boils down to. There's like multiple instances of that.
great.
Always like, and people who don't like the trope are always like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever read. And like even in my beta readers sometimes are like, why is she like talking about how perfect his hair is, but she hates it at the same time? And I'm like, because that's how it is.
Yes.
That's what we like.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
That is a good point that there, like, I do believe that there is a difference between hate to love as a trope and enemies to lovers as a trope.
True.
I think
Yes, that's what I
yeah,
should
the
say.
strongest enemies to lovers is for sure like what you're saying. Like they have opposing, both parties hate each other. I feel like most hate enemies to lovers, because I feel like it just works better. Like if we just wrap it in the same package, that's enemies to lovers. Like people never use the term hate to love, even though most of the ones I read are more hate to love. Even I think my own that I call an enemies to lovers, my first Fae book, is probably a little more hate to love. There's definitely some enemies aspects, but yeah, like the strongest enemies to lovers tropes are when they both are enemies and they both hate each other. Like the Jude and Carden thing from, oh, I'm jumping on yours. I'm sorry, Valia. But like I just have to say it. Just that those like strong opposing forces. And then there's like the hate to love, which I do like that just as much as enemies to lovers, just because there's so many of those where it's just like they just hate each other. And that's probably more of what like Pride and Prejudice is. Like they both dislike each other.
Yeah, and I love Pride and
Yeah.
Prejudice, but when I was thinking about it and I was like, enemies, lovers, I don't know, yeah, it's something I've really been thinking about as I'm starting to draft my next book, which is not going to be again, because I'm like, you really, to do it well, have to like manipulate all the circumstances around them and their backgrounds to put them in opposition to each other, which like none of us read Serpent and Dove for this, but Serpent and Dove is very like that. Like Reed has been taught from birth to hate witches, and Lou has been taught from birth to hate the like witch hunters.
I
So
mean,
they're like, I know, which makes sense. But it's like their entire like upbringing and all their belief systems and all their interactions have like primed them to be enemies to each other, and they have to work through that. So it's like, I don't know. They also don't have quite as much like need to. They do have different goals, but I don't like you. It can't just be that they run into each other and one of them's like rude, because it's not as satisfying. Then you're like, just be nicer then.
Well, that's true. And like
Yeah,
like in the
that's
hating
true.
game, aren't they both going for the same job? Like, isn't, if I remember correctly?
Yes.
Yeah, and that like
Mhm.
really makes it that enemies thing where like even as they're starting to like have feelings for each other and they're starting to have these like heated, angry kisses, they're still going for the same job, and that's still a point of like, and it's like a
Tension.
point of tension between them, even as they start growing closer and stop. Their kisses turn to a little more passionate than the hate ones.
But then they have to choose. Like I think as part of the end, they have to be like, is my goal more important than my feelings for this other person, or do I love them enough to let their goal win over my goal, which is like a sacrifice more than just, can we learn to be less grouchy. I like the grouchies too. I keep saying I like anything that gives them a little bit of spark at the beginning makes me happy, but
I feel like my characters are mostly grouchy. They're like, I always try to be like enemies to lovers, but really in reality, it's like, it's more hate to love kind of situation where they're like grouchy in the beginning and they were like hurt this person and then like something happens and you're like, okay, yeah.
and
all
then
right.
they have multiple training sessions together.
My training sessions, that's my favorite staple. You guys like glittery courts and dresses and I'm like, let's beat the crap out of each other.
I loved it because in your Thunderbird Academy
Those
ones,
training
I
sessions
was like, I'm
were
pretty
so
sure
good. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is kind of the same as the last training session you wrote, but I'm still
Yep.
really here for it and wondering when the next one will be.
Because you really can't change those up. You literally are just training, like, you know, to take care of each other and, like, you know, to fight and
And
whatever.
then they wrestled around, and then they looked
Ooh,
at each
the
other, and you're like,
wrestling.
oh, they're touching. They're
Yeah.
touching again.
I know. That's
They
like
don't want to be.
they don't want to be touching. That's a
But they
big
are.
thing with the whole touch thing is such a big thing with me. Like, I just love like when characters touch when they're like don't like each other, you know, because they're like training and they have to, and then you're just kind of like, yeah, yeah, I see the tension. I see it. It's happening.
They're like, it's not.
Yeah.
We just happen to be wrestling.
I know. They're always like, just stop putting us together. And I'm like, never.
The author's like, "Mahaha."
Basically. I know one of my favorite things about Thunderbird Academy, or no, it was actually, I don't remember if it was Thunderbird Academy or the prison series. There was a training session that I wrote, and I had it in my head, like a specific move, and I could not figure it out. And then I was like, I feel like I've seen it in a movie, or I've seen it where I was doing my research. Like, I couldn't find it. And finally I figured out it was the fighting scene in Miss Congeniality.
Oh.
So I looked it up and I was like, yes, that is the move that I wanted to do. And so I rewatched that scene like 10 times to figure out how I wanted to write it. And I was like, yes, because that's like a perfect, like, I think that's where my love for training scenes when they hate each other came from, where they're like literally beating the crap out of each other because they're just angry with each other, instead of being like, oh, I'll be careful or whatever because she's a girl or he's, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, like, you fight for real. Anyway, that's like a whole other conversation.
It's
That's
been
a good
ages since I
one.
watched that movie.
I know, I like that one. But I guess I should talk about what I read. Yes, Tess mentioned my book was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black.
Which I would have chosen if I had been faster in the chat thread.
Yes, because
But
that
Valia
one,
beat me to it.
I love those books so much. And I think it's because they speak to my, obviously my fairy love and my fairy tale love, and also my love of like darker, crueler settings. Because The Cruel Prince is cruel. It's cruel throughout, and the books are, I mean, they're very well written because I love Holly's writing style, but I don't know, most
They're
of you probably,
stabby. I call them
she's
stabby
stabby. Yes, which I love, obviously, as you can tell from this conversation. But it is probably her most popular series. I don't know if there's like one that really stands out more than it, but it does follow a girl named Jude, who is one of the mortal girls. Her parents were killed, her and her sister. She was basically taken to Fairy to,
With her two
you
sisters.
know, live.
By her
Her
parents'
two sisters. Yes, by her sister's killer. Or by her parents' killer. Thank you. And yeah, there is a older sister who is half fae and half mortal, and then there's the two girls who are mortal. And so Jude is completely mortal, and she doesn't want to be because she wants to belong in fairy. And so she basically does everything she can and trains to be stronger and faster and more powerful, and she just really wants that as her like motivation. And her sister's
Because
the opposite.
the Fae are terrible.
The
and
Fae
will,
are
like,
so
kill
terrible.
Her if
Yes.
she does it pretty much. They're like waiting to pounce on her weakness.
Yeah, the Fae are so bad in these books. Like they're very, very dark, which I loved. I know some people have a problem with it, but I just thought it was such an interesting take on something that I've already read before, you know? And one of the things I loved about Jude just as a character is that she like always pushed herself to be more, like always. And it wasn't, I mean, she had, you know, her weak moments and sadness and whatever, but it was always like, what am I going to do to fix this next, you know? And I love about like characters that don't just like sit on the sidelines, like her sister. She kind of just like fell in love with the court life, and that's what she wanted, and that was it and stuff. And I'm like, no. And Carden, is that how you say his name? Carden, right?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, so he is the youngest prince, basically, and him and Jude, I mean, their relationship is just like hate for like the longest time. And like the tension that is on like the page every time they're in the vicinity of each other is one of my favorite things. Like there's a part where she like goes to, I don't remember if it's like a picnic or like just like a something in the woods or whatever. Anytime there was like a part where her and Locke like end up at this like little outing, and she like comes in with Locke, and Carden is there like getting kissed by like some girls or whatever, and like the whole time he's literally just watching her
I remember that.
as he's getting right, and the whole time
That's when they go to Locke's.
yes, you're right. And so the whole time I'm just like, okay, like he's still staring at her. Like there's just like, I don't know, like there's just so much tension when they're around each other, even when they're not communicating, like when they're not talking or anything, there's still like so much tension. And like, I don't know, I feel like that was just like my favorite part. I did kind of wish there was more interaction between them in the first book,
Yeah.
because I was just like, I need more of them actually being together, because like while I see the tension from afar, I need like a face to face right here right now, like show it to me, because that's what I love. I love like that, like that intense being near each other.
Well, and it's called The Cruel Prince, but Cardan isn't even in the first book that much. He's in it. He's in it. But
true.
I felt like I wanted more of Cardan also in the first book.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously it changes well as it goes along, but that was my expectation going in too, is I thought it was going to be a lot more of him. But I don't know. I love those books. But they are very cruel. Like just the jokes that they played on Jude and like the stuff that she went through were just
dark.
It is dark. If I write Faye right here, like halfway, on the page, Holly Black is like off the page and in another universe writing them cruelly. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
It definitely borders on bullying for sure. Like they push toward bullying.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been reading Holly Black. I'm like a Holly Black hipster. I've been reading Holly Black since before she was cool. But like for, I don't know, when the first, I'm trying to remember the names of books now. I'm really tired today, guys.
The first one
Tithe,
is...
yes. I've been reading since Tithe.
Yep.
And I've always, like, I am not a dark person, by the way. I haven't noticed. But I've always, like, I love... She was the only one for a long time writing about fairies. And fairy, like fairy with an E. And that whole thing. And then there was, like, a few more. There's, like, a while ago. And then no one did again. And then it started to become a thing again more recently. And she got a lot more attention because of it, I think. But it was always, like, somewhere down in my psyche that I just, like, when I started writing, I wanted to write about fairy. Even though I knew I could not write as stabby a fairy as she did. Which is why my books, like my fairy tale retellings, are in fairy, because a lot of it's because of her and reading those books, and there's just like something so, it's like a different kind of magical than other stuff, and I think I always like that it's like ties into our world.
Right. Yeah.
It's like it could be lurking there and you don't even know, but like in a different way than urban fantasy does.
Right. Because with the Cruel Prince, she does come back to like our world and stuff. Like she does go in between. And that's another part that I really loved about the trilogy, is that I mentioned this earlier. I like love the family dynamics, and Jude is like 100% there for her family. Like, with between her little brother and like her sisters, like she's there to protect them and then like to take care of them and stuff. And I feel like that motivation always like makes me really happy in books, because I'm like, yes, protect your family. But that was a big part for her, and I thought that was like really cool to see how the books were so dark, but there was just that like pure like, I'm gonna protect my family driving point.
And I think that's why we forgive her for being like, she's ruthless and she is really ambitious, but when it comes down to it, like her biggest betrayals and her biggest like bad things she does are always like for her little brother.
Yes.
Or something like that. They're never just for her. So it's like she'll say that she wants to have all the power, but she wants to have the power in the end to protect him. So even though she's really morally gray, like there's a lot of morally gray characters I do not like. And I never minded Jude because I felt like she was just ruthless in pursuit of what she thought was right. And what was good and what would help her family. It was just that she would do anything.
Right, yeah.
to bring it about. Whereas some people it seems like they're morally gray because they don't care about anybody and they're going to do their own thing. And I'm like, I'm not into that.
Exactly. And that's why I like really love this series, because even though it's like dark and cruel and stuff, like you still like, like I'm here for Jude. Like I understand, because like I would do the same thing if I could, kind of thing. And I love that. So...
And there's milkweed ponies.
Oh,
I love the whimsical random stuff. I was like, it's like so at odds with the stabbiness. And then there's like, and now you blow on a like a little thing and the pony prances out and you ride it to the human world. I was like, I love it.
So yeah, if you guys haven't checked any of these books out, you should, because obviously we love them. And the enemies to lovers thing is just so fun because it's just angsty and will they, won't they? Like, it's so good. Anyway.
Sparky. I like sparky romances.
Got that sizzle. It makes it very easy to sizzle because there's always something that stands. I mean, I guess any good romance that is building up to something, there's always going to be something that stands in the way of them, becoming a couple. But the enemies to lovers thing makes it like very tangible because especially if they hate each other, they're like, oh, but I want to kiss him because his lips are so luscious and the way he says my name gives me shivers up my spine, but I hate him. Like, and you, yeah, that can't be love that I feel. That must be the burning rage.
This is how we write.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I do love the enemies to lovers trope within the young adult fiction, though, because like you're so unsure of yourself already, and then adding this like, first of all, this great adventure or whatever you have to go on, because we all write like fantasy and magic and stuff, so all of our stories have like that other main point that's besides romance. But the fact that you have to deal with that coming into powers or situation you're thrust into, and then like having the enemies to lovers when you're already unsure of your feelings as a teenager, now you're like on top of this, it's like an extra power boost of like angst and all of that stuff, which I love. Yes,
such high stakes. Yeah,
exactly. So
we are here for the angst.
We are here for the angst and the sparks. I did try to make it enemies to lovers in my Fae book, but I just kind of really fell in love with the broody prince, and I feel like he came out a lot nicer than I thought he would, but my early readers seem to love it.
This was my same problem. I was like, for the Rose Kid, I'm like, I'm gonna make Leith like his is Beauty and the Beast. I'm like, yeah, and he's gonna be like terrible and grumpy, and then he just refused.
Yeah, sometimes they just do.
He was like, he did turn into a Mr. Darcy. He was just like bad at expressing himself and had been like locked in his castle for a really long time. Like didn't know how to communicate well with others.
I mean, I feel like that's very relatable. Everybody's in that boat right now.
I know. It's true. It's like quarantine life. They got quarantined at a castle, which seems nicer, honestly.
I would take quarantine in a castle.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when I find a portal. We'll go.
Jay, please take us with you.
Just make sure it's only a little haunted, not super haunted.
Only a little haunted.
It's all right, guys. I'll protect you. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah, Valia's got us.
My portals don't go to haunted places. I can't speak for Valia's portals or Stacy's portals.
Well, I know that the books that we read for this are definitely not the only enemies to lovers books, and we all have a lot of other ones that we've either read. I mean, we mentioned a bunch today already, but I want to mention one that enemies to lovers, and it just so happens to be written by one of our authors here today. It's the Camdaria.
If you had video, you could watch her blushing, but unfortunately.
Kay wrote the Camdaria series, which I've only read the first 4 books of so far, but it is enemies to lovers, and it has that sizzle in it. It has the like two people who do not like each other. They are competing for the same thing, so it has that similar feel that the hating game has, where like they only one can win, in the first book. But the reason that I think it's super cute is that I got my daughter into this series. My daughter is
because it is not like the hating game.
It's not steamy, you guys. It's not. I mean, there's that sizzle, but it's not. There's no smut. That's the word. There's no smut in this one. But my daughter's 9.
Lots of sizzle.
Yeah, there's sizzle, but no smut. My daughter's 9. She just turned 9 actually. And she is such like she is a really, really good reader, and she's very like advanced for reading. And then so she's been reading chapter books, or she started a couple years ago, and then she started saying that they were boring and predictable. Like there was this fairy series that she was reading, and she was just stopped reading them because the same thing happened every time. Like she would read like 100 pages a night, and like then all of a sudden she stopped and she didn't read after that. And I was so like, my heart was hurting for her because I was like, I don't want to see this kid who's so good at reading and loves reading so much just stop reading. And so I was like, okay, so I need something that's young adult, but isn't smutty. a lot of the ones that I read end up being a little too smutty. Like, I wouldn't even let her read my Fae series. She can read my first one, which already like pushes it a little bit in a couple of the scenes, but like she cannot read my Fae books. I cannot even give her a paperback of those ones. But then I was like, wait a minute, let's try Camdaria. And now she's passed me by 2 books, which I'm super jealous. And she constantly comes up and tells me, she'll like say something, which I can't even tell you guys what she says because it'll be a spoiler for you. But she'll just say like, blah, 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 just happened. Don't worry, that's only a little bit of a spoiler. I'm just trying to get you excited for what's going to happen. So yeah, she's beating me now. But that's my enemies to lovers pick. For those of you looking for more books in the trope.
That's so cute.
I bet y'all have some to recommend too.
I love that she's loving it. That's so cute. So I have a recommendation. It's Trial of Thorns by Stacey Trombley. This one was such a cool enemies to lovers. I'm pretty sure this is not a spoiler. It's not. Okay, I know it's not. Anyway, so the main character, she has this love interest, and she killed his brother. That happens.
Ooh.
It's a very stabby.
Yeah, it happens before.
Love stabby.
Before the book begins, she kills his brother, but she is, sort of in love with him. The brother that is not dead.
That's not dead.
The not dead brother. Anyway, but the brother, obviously, the love interest, the not dead brother, does not love her at all. He hates her a lot. And
I wonder why.
yeah.
I love that he's got a good reason to hate her. That it's not like, you're like, I hate her too. He's like, I'm going to kill her to avenge my brother.
Absolutely wants her dead, like, badly. So I feel like that was a really, unique, but it was just like a really fun way to start the story where they just hate each other.
Nothing
so
says
much.
fun
I
like
know.
killing
I guess
somebody's
fun
brother.
wasn't the right word. Interesting, intriguing, Anyway, that one was cool. Trial of Thorns. It was, has fun trials and also has Fae, so it's a great one for that.
I liked that one as well. It was very stabby.
Yes.
Which, if you're like missing the stabbiness of the Cruel Prince and want more people who hate each other.
Perfect.
My recommendation is Dusk Till Dawn, and it's by Tiffany Hackett and Becky Moynihan. And it's like, it also has Fae. Fae are cool right now, guys. But it's like, they're not like, I don't know. They have wings and stuff. They're a little different. And it's this city where it's like, it used to be Fae and Shifter and humans, and then I think they like got rid of all the humans. I think there was humans. Don't quote me on any of this. And then the Shifters are like in charge, and the Fae are like all in like poor parts of the city that are crumbling and are oppressed, and the poor Fae are oppressed, and they're not allowed to use their magic.
Poor Fae.
And they're like, yeah, I know, because I think they were afraid of them.
That sounds like a dystopian.
It is. It's like, it's considered an urban fantasy.
Okay.
But yeah, it does have like a little bit of dystopianness, and then one of the main girl is a lion shifter, and she is the foster daughter of the shifter who's in charge of everything, and she's like an enforcer, like a, I don't know, police sort of thing. And then Faye, who his previous girlfriend got killed by the shifters, and he's just like out for blood all the time and is very feisty and a little bit alcoholic. He's got some problems.
He's got some problems.
He does. So they both have a lot of emotional baggage, and and they're set up to hate each other from the beginning. She doesn't really hate him, like a little bit, because he's kind of a lot of work, but he hates her because he hates everything to do with shifters, and her position has put her like in a place to obviously be hated. So that's just the first book. There's gonna be 4 so far. There's 2 out, and they are both super fun. Second one is not Enemies to Lover anymore. Spoilers. But yeah, they're good books.
That one's on my list. That's the only one I haven't read out of these. My recommendation was Evermore Academy by Audrey Gray. And I love those books very much so. I haven't finished book 2 because I'm just terrible at reading right now. But this pushes me to finish books because now I have to talk about them. But that was really fun because it has like the academy setting, which like I love so much. Obviously, I have an academy setting book. But with her, like she kind of like the main character comes into this academy because of just like stealing some apples or something, right? Is that what it is? They're like
I
fae
think she
apples?
just was like maybe, or was just like on the wrong side of the fence and got
Something
caught.
like that.
Oh
Like
yeah, she was hiding, wasn't she? Wasn't she hiding from like
the mobsters or whatever
like,
on her
yeah,
side.
like the guy who, because she was stealing food, and then
Yes,
she
that's what it
like
was.
tried to get away, and then like the security guard or whatever, I don't know, he's probably not a security guard, but in my brain he is. And then I think she was like hiding, so she had to go on the other side of the wall. I don't know, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I read that one.
That is, I think you are correct because she did end up on the wrong side, and she did end up like there's like fairy fruit there that she was just gonna take with her because she was like, well, they don't need it and they're never gonna know. And then she meets somebody and basically ends up being her having to go to this academy as like the punishment, and like surviving this academy is like near impossible.
And this one has training fight scenes
It
too. No wonder
does.
you
That's
like
why
it.
I
She's
love
in, like,
it.
No wonder.
She's in bodyguard training.
Yeah, anyway,
Like, to be a good bodyguard for him, you must fight him.
And
in
almost kiss him
training.
when you like, you know, you get that accidental
Yes.
tumble.
Yep.
Always happens.
When their faces come together, I love it. I also really love when they like tumble and then she like ends up on top and like her hair falls out of her ponytail and they like go to the side. I don't remember if it's in this book or if I wrote it, but like the hair goes to the side and he like has to move it or whatever. Oh my gosh, yeah. I don't
Valia's
remember.
having a moment now.
Just excuse me for a second. But yeah, there's so many good animist lovers out there.
And Evermore Academy, I always say, is just like, they're just fun. Like, they're not like deep books at all. And they're very tropey, but they're so fun to read. And I found them very fast reads, and they're not even that short.
Yeah, they're long.
She writes much longer books than I do.
But you just read it and you're just, yeah.
And they're very well written,
I
too.
call them fun. They're fun books. They are well written. And that one, I think she pitched it as The Cruel Prince meets Vampire Academy.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm on board with both of those.
Yeah.
And I read it and I was like, that is legitimate, with like a little Hunger Games thrown in for fun at the beginning.
Yeah, I do like that. We talked about Vampire Academy last time, so it's like, you know, those have training scenes in them.
Ooh.
They do. Oh, I know. I love that trope too.
Oh,
I'm not
I love
gonna
it.
lie. Especially when they have like reasons why they can't be together, but also reasons why they have to train together.
You guys, do I need to buy the paperback book series of that? Like, I've only read the first book and it was so long that I don't remember it. And I keep staring at it on Amazon because it's only like $36 for the full series paperback. And I'm like, do I need that? Like, do I want that whole series?
Yes.
I mean, I think so.
It's one of those series. It's one of my picks for further on in the podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more.
Yeah, don't worry, I will talk about it more. But it's one of the only series that I've read that I find did a romance well over multiple books. Because I get very bored easily with, like, sometimes it's so slow burn that you're like, how many books is it going to take before they get together?
Oh, that's like me.
And sometimes they get together in the first book and then you're like, and then there's like no romantic tension for the rest of the series because they're together, you know? And I thought Vampire Academy, I think it's because she's exceptionally mean to the characters.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know if I could be that mean as she is.
I want to be that mean.
I know, I aspire to be that mean, but maybe with training.
Okay, well, maybe this will help me fall in love with slow burn because, like, I mean, I wouldn't say that I hate slow burn, but, like, I'm the same way where I will get bored if I don't get enough of them being together. Like, I need to have enough or else I'm just like,
Yeah.
do I seriously have to like be tortured for like 7 books? But maybe this book will, because I want to write slower burn because all my books the couple gets together in the first book of like a series. So I need to like learn how to slow things down a little bit. So
And they do get together in book 2, but then there's like reasons why things go badly and
Yeah, she does a really good job with reasons. I need to
for like
speed up my
believable and angsty reasons.
yes, not like just I need to speed up my slow burn. I feel like people are like I always get, especially in book 2, they're like, can you make him kiss, please? Just once. By book 2. Just
They
make
can
it
kiss
happen.
Make them kiss and then regret it. Like,
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, my prison series, we're on book 3 and they haven't yet, but they're going through a lot, okay, you guys? They're going through a lot right now.
You can't force it either, or else then it's just weird. Like if there's like really legitimate reasons why these people should not be making out, like throwing it in there, it just feels really weird.
I agree. Okay, you want to add anything?
I do like it when they kiss in book 1, okay? That's all you have to say. It doesn't have to be like a real kiss, but they kiss and regret it. Or it can be a real kiss, but then more problems arise.
What's not a real kiss?
Oh, forced kiss.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
This is why my next book I'm writing is going to be fake engagement.
Yay!
I love that
then
trope.
you like have to make them kiss for reasons because people expect it of them and they're like, we're not going to kiss for real. And then they're like, we accidentally kissed for real. Crap.
And then they kiss and they're like, oh no, that was a very good kiss. What do I do?
Magical.
Yeah. And then like look awkwardly away and go back to not being together.
That is something else we will discuss. Like the forced romance. That's another trope. Like you guys have a lot to look forward to. We're going to be talking about a lot of different tropes in books. And I think it's such a fun discussion because like you get to see how we write it, but also like just talk about these books.
We do love talking about books. Clearly.
Hey, Valia, is there going to be more people talking with us next week?
Yes, actually.
But not with us, actually, because I won't be here.
That's true. So in the next episode, we're going to be changing things up a little bit and have another member of our author group here. So Hanna won't be here, but we'll have another guest. And
I'll come back, though, guys.
yep,
Don't worry
she'll
about me.
be back. We're super excited to have you guys meet the others in the group. Yeah, so make sure you join us for our next episodes because we're just gonna continue having fun over here and talking about books and movies and tropes and baking.
Well, Hanna won't be here,
We're always
so we won't be talking about
That's
baking
true.
next time.
I was going to say, will baking come up without me?
Let's find out.
Probably not, but you will be back to talk about baking.
We'll see how much I bake in the meantime.
There you go. Yeah. In the meantime, let's just go ahead and go around the room again and talk about what we're reading next. So, Tess, what are you reading next?
Well, I did mention that I'm currently reading Cinder, so I'm just going to keep reading that. I think afterward I might read Evermore Academy Book 2, because I haven't read that one yet, and since we're talking about it, it makes me want to read that. And I have Kindle Unlimited now, so you know what? Why not?
Oh, perfect. There you go. Kay, what's your
I
next
will
book?
be reading Queen of Shadows from the Throne of Glass series. I started it forever ago, and then when COVID hit, let's just say that it got put on the back burner for a very long time. Anyway, I'm picking it up again, and I'm determined to get through it. So
Nice. Hanna, what about you?
I'm also reading some Audrey Gray. I just started it, Oath Taker? Her other series. I've only read the Evermore ones, but I also have Kindle Unlimited right now, and then I'm like, I must read at least 2 books a month, or else it doesn't
Right?
count, and I should have canceled it. But I just finished a book, and I was going to tell Valia about it, because Valia was talking about how much she loves, I don't know if she said this on the podcast or before last time, but she loves the trope where people are like on stage and they like each other and they have to sing together and like pretend they don't like each other, but they actually like each other and they have a moment.
Ugh, yes.
So I read this book, it's by Jay Dawson, which is a pen name of Jessica Sundin and Claire Luana. And it's a contemporary romance called, I think it's Moonlight and Belladonna. It could be Belladonna and Moonlight, but I think it's Moonlight and
Is that
Belladonna.
the Halloween one that you posted
Yes,
about? Okay.
yes. So it takes place in like a cute little town. It's adult contemporary romance. So a cute little town around Halloween. And it's got like her mom is kind of like an Italian witch and makes her do something to like make her perfect guy show up.
Ooh.
And she thinks of this rock star, and then he like appears.
Oh
Not
my
out
gosh.
of magic. He was just like stumbling through the forest. And so for reasons that make sense in the book. And they together, like she's a teacher who's teaching, she's like a high school music teacher and they're doing a musical. So then he has to come help them for community service and they have to like teach this musical together at the high school. So it has like, they have a moment, like,
They have a
singing
moment.
on
So
stage.
it's like High School Musical, but it's the teachers who fall in love.
Yes.
There you go.
Sounds
Only one's a
adorable.
rock star. And
It does.
It's so cute. And it, like, I'm not a Halloween person, but it still gave me like those like fall cozy, like wonderful feels.
Like a
and
good
it's super
Hallmark
cute.
movie.
Yes, they mentioned that it has at least one sex scene more than a Hallmark.
Oh.
Oh, that's up my alley then.
I just feel like I should inform people. I wouldn't call it like, it's not like a super smutty book, but
But it's like test level.
not.
The test level.
It's probably a test level. Yeah. But it's cute. I think you would like it. I was like, it's got witchiness and people like singing on stage.
You know what?
I need to read
I'm
this.
here
Very
for
validated.
it.
This is going on my
And
list
Tessonja,
too.
too.
This sounds so
Yeah.
You
good.
would like it as well. Yes. I read it in 24 hours. So that's how cute I thought it was, but I read really fast. And then I was like, why are they done?
Why are they done?
Why
Me
did I
with
read
everything I read or watch. I need more.
I know. So they're writing a series in which I believe like every holiday will have one. So the next one's
Cute.
gonna be like a Valentine's one with a different couple.
That's cute. Yeah. I'll put it on my list. I'll read it after I'm done. I'm reading Riley
It's
Sager's.
in Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, I don't have that.
Oh, wow.
Rude.
Tessonja,
Yes.
when
There
you're
you
done
go.
reading the entire Cinder series.
Yes, I have it on my list.
I'm in the thriller mystery mood right now, so I've been reading Final Girls by Riley Sager, I think is how you say it. I'm sorry. But it's the only book by him I haven't read, and it's his first one. It's his debut, so I was like, I'm going to read this, and it actually got me out of my like little reading slump. So I'm like 30 pages away from finishing it. So I'll pick up the cute novel that you mentioned after that, cuz that sounds like it's perfect for now.
Yeah, well, it's a Halloween one. So.
Let's see if we both end up reading it. If we both end up reading
Yes.
Valia, we'll have to talk about it on the next episode.
Perfect. That works for me. Well, thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Reading Queens Pod if you haven't already. We'll be sharing books we're reading on there and glimpses of a day in life, and you'll be getting to know us a little bit better. We'll be making posts about each of us so you guys can put a face to the voice. And if you'd like to vote on our first book club read, we'll be posting that as well. So yeah, make sure to give it a follow. Before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening, and stay tuned for next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.